Hey everyone, Sarah Baccaro, hypnotherapist and rapid transformational therapist. I wanted to share with you today a question that I get asked and something that comes up a lot in our therapy sessions. And obviously, that is past experiences and their impact on our life today and our upbringing. And we were all, if you're an adult today, you were once a child. And perhaps in your role as a child, you had to take on more than just a childlike role. Perhaps there are times that you were made to take on the role of a parent, and that has a significant impact on the parent or the person, the adult that you are today, for a number of reasons. So we're going to go over some of those today. Maybe you haven't thought about these before. Perhaps you know that you did experience these today and feel stuck today, feel that your childhood was unfair, that you were robbed of your childhood, and have a lot of internal conflict around that. Perhaps you feel angry, you feel resentful, you feel mad, you feel like you know you need to forgive your parents because you've heard this term and know it, right? They did the best they could with what they had, but there's still feelings of shame, guilt, frustration, anger locked away inside of you, and now you know that you're taking them out on people who don't deserve it. Perhaps your spouse, perhaps your children, perhaps people at your work, or you're stuffing it down and bottling it up, and then you take it out on yourself. Perhaps it leads to using food or alcohol or relationships or other substances, other addictions in ways that you know you shouldn't, but you just can't seem to break that connection. But you're ready to get to the root of it. So, why would a child take on the role of a parent? I mean, that's not the child's job, but as children, you're dependent on the people around you, whether it's teachers, whether it's parents, grandparents, whether it's other siblings, older siblings, if you're one of the younger ones. So, why do children have to grow up too fast? Why would a child take on the role of a parent? Well, one of the reasons may be because a parent is ill and a parent needs caring for. My mother came from a relationship and a family where it was dynamic where this was present. She was the youngest of three and significantly younger than her two older siblings. And mom worked a full time job. Dad used to work a full time job until he got really, really ill and really sick, is sick with cancer. And there was one income and her mom was making it. So mom couldn't stay home to take care of her husband. So my mom was put in the role of being forced to take care of her father who was really sick with cancer. And it wasn't a fun kind of cancer, and it was later stages of it. So she had to take on that role as a teenager, as an early teenager, in fact. And it had significant impacts on the rest of her life, right? And so oftentimes when a child is forced to take on the role of a parent, they naturally take on this role of caregiver, fixer, which is a fawning trauma response. There's the four F's for trauma: the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And you can't fight back. This person is sick, right? And you can't run away because they're dependent on you. Um, so you're stuck taking care of them. You're stuck addressing their needs, especially if that parent is ill and needs caring for. That is this child, my mom in this case, being forced to be in a position where you have to take on the role of parent because you're the only one. And of course, you love your parent and you want to see them get well and improve and get better so that you can spend your life with them. Unfortunately, in her case, it didn't happen, but that's one of the reasons why a child may take on the role of parent, and it significantly impacts the rest of their adult life. Another reason why a child would take on the role of parent is that there's younger siblings to be cared for. This comes up all the time in therapy sessions where there's multiple children, and the one who's the oldest is forced to help parents out by taking care of the younger kids. So inevitably, they end up being forced to grow up way too fast or to take on these responsibilities that aren't really there, because in a role of a family dynamic where there's two parents and let's say four or five kids, there's literally not even enough hands or arms. So they call on the older children to help take care of the younger children. And therefore, they're taking on these adult roles, responsibilities, and helping out to take care of the younger siblings. You see this a lot in big families. And unfortunately, these older children get robbed of part of their childhood. They're not free to go out and have fun because they're having to help the parents take care of the younger ones. Uh, or if parents are absent a lot, this also comes up, and it manifests in feelings of abandonment, rejection, betrayal, and feeling unworthy, unlovable, because if parents were gone a lot, perhaps they moved a lot or were traveling a lot for work. And you think, well, I had a really good childhood because I had a roof over my head, I had my clothes on my back, but my parents were gone all the time. They worked a lot. Maybe they were climbing their way up the corporate ladder to provide, things that you needed, maybe money for you to go to a really nice school, to have a nice car, to live in a nice house or nice area, but they were gone working, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, or they were traveling a lot for work. Well, then this has come up all the time where even men said, well, I had to step up. I had to be the dad because my dad was gone. And then mom started venting and sharing things with me that I was really too young to be able to understand and process. So as a child, if you have one parent who's gone or absent a lot, you're forced into a role that's really not suited for you emotionally or developmentally, but you're forced to take on that role as one of the parents, the absent parent. Or parents are overwhelmed. They're just completely stressed and they project that stress onto the children, or they're abusive. Maybe it's mentally, emotionally, verbally, or they're completely neglectful. They stick you in front of a TV, or you're just gone at your friend's house all the time and they think it's normal. The parent takes advantage of that and goes, oh my gosh, right? But they're not attending to your emotional well-being or needs, and they're just completely neglectful for them. You're fine. You're fine. Well, go do it then, right? And you don't have that sense of connection with your parent. And so you're forced to parent yourself and take care of yourself. And oftentimes you're praised for this because then you're told you're such an easy child. You're such a good kid. You're so easy. And you're praised for that, not even knowing that anything is missing until you grow up and you begin to do the inner work to heal. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that I needed that. It was just never there. I had to take care of it myself and do it myself, or else I wouldn't get it, right? If you're 6 years old and you're making your own dinners because whoever it is just tired, passed out on the couch, or just completely neglectful. You see this all the time in children who grow up with alcoholic parents or emotionally unavailable parents. They're just completely neglectful to your needs, and you're left to take care of it and parent yourself on your own. If your parents triangulate with a child, so the relationship should be between, I know there's many types of relationships. Let's just say a mom and a dad, right? Mom, dad, and one of the parents triangulates and brings in the child into arguments. I had this come up in another therapy session where dad was an alcoholic. Mom stayed, she was financially dependent on the alcoholic husband, father, and would put it on the child, would put it on my client, the daughter, to say, well, when dad's drinking, it's your job to stand by the front door and your job to not let him leave. You cannot let your dad leave, because if he leaves, he's going to be out drinking all night. He's going to cause all kinds of problems. Cops are going to be called, blah, 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 going on and on and on. That little 6-year-old girl felt that it was her responsibility to make sure that her dad did not leave that house and go out drinking. And mom should have never done that to her, but she did. And so mom was triangulating with the child and bringing the child into this relationship that should have been between mom and dad, but mom brought in child and made her feel responsible. Well, there's no way that a little 6-year-old child can stop an adult parent from going out and drinking all night. It just didn't happen. But this happened repeatedly. It happened over and over. So that child was triangulated and forced to take on the role of a parent. Another reason why this may happen is that parents share inappropriately with the child. They share too much about, one of the parents, the ex. They overshare. They share too much. There are certain things that children cannot comprehend or understand and don't need to know. Those are adult issues and problems. They're not child issues and problems. And so there are some things that children just have no place in knowing, but the parent inappropriately will share with the child, and it's generally something that's very negative about their other parent. Well, as the child who loves that other parent because they love both of their parents, they're not sure how to process that or what to do with it. And so then they take on the job and the role of comforting the parent who's oversharing with them and saying, it's going to be okay. Daddy or mommy didn't mean it that way. Daddy or mommy told me this, because they're being shared with inappropriate and things that are not appropriate for their age or their mental capacity to understand, they end up inadvertently taking on the role of parent, and then the parent ends up being this child, so to speak. And so if a parent inappropriately shares with the child, that's another reason why this may occur. Maybe the parent makes the child do age inappropriate tasks. So if your child is 4, for example, and you give them the responsibility of something that it would be more appropriate for a 12 or 15-year-old to do, but not appropriate for a 4-year-old to do. So if the parent makes the child do age inappropriate tasks, then they're forced to take on more than really what's appropriate for their age level. That's another reason why this occurs. I know you see this a lot, and I've seen it before, and I just don't believe it's fair, but I understand, the ways that it has to happen. Sometimes if there's a family business and the child is forced to work into the parents or the family business out of necessity, well, we don't have anyone that can help, right? So it's up to you. We've got to keep this, right? And that business may be something that does those things, keeps a roof over their head and food on the table and clothes on their back. But if the child is forced to work in the parent's business out of necessity, you see it in restaurants, you see it in different types of salons or service industries, where the children are there working for the parent because parents who own it and run it. Well, what is more appropriate is for that parent to hire the work needed, instead of not paying their child, but having their child do the work that someone else should be getting paid for. And it may be out of necessity and is okay temporarily, but not long term. So if a child is put into this position, then they're forced to grow up too soon as they're taking on these job-like roles, responsibilities. If a parent has a problem with substance abuse, if they're using drugs or alcohol, then of course they're going to be sometimes physically absent, emotionally absent, just disconnected. If a parent has substance abuse, you see this a lot in kids who grow up with alcoholic parents, then they're forced to take on the role of the parent, perhaps forced to take care of other siblings, take care of themselves, take care of sometimes even things like paying the bills and making sure electricity gets stayed on, making sure they don't get evicted. When the parent with a substance abuse problem is out just spending all their money, uh, and not using it for the things that would be appropriate to use it for, like paying bills on time and not getting evicted or kicked out. So, and then that can just snowball into other things happening, like the kid having to step into different roles and having to explain and defend and justify, or having to go to other friends and family members, stay with them, or ask them for money. I mean, the whole thing can just snowball, especially if a parent has a substance abuse problem and is picking that over taking care of the child, then that child can be forced to grow up really, really quickly. The effects of divorce can force a child to take on the role of parent and grow up way too quickly, because one or both parents become so wrapped up and absorbed in the divorce and all the things that go with the divorce and the fighting and the arguing. And sometimes divorces can get dragged out for years and be so nasty and so devastating. And in that case, then one or both of the parents is not there to raise a healthy child and to really be present and engage with them in the way that that child needs and deserves. So then the child's left to fend for themselves, and sometimes seeing the effects of divorce. Not all divorces, but some. Or if a child has emotionally immature parents, if that person is just not grown up. It doesn't take emotional maturity to have a child, unfortunately. It just takes a couple other events to occur, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that person who created that child is emotionally mature. So if a child has emotionally immature parents and they do all of these things, then that child's left to take on the role of parent themselves. And that leaves a lifelong impact. Then they end up doing this in their adult lives and end up taking on too much, more than what's appropriate, and really becoming dysregulated from themselves, and ends up having a really difficult time setting healthy boundaries with themselves and with other people in relationships, personal relationships, work relationships, friendships. It impacts every area of their life. So if this is you and you feel like I was forced as a child or put in a position as a child to take on the role of my parents, and I'm seeing this now, I'm learning about it, I'm studying about it, I'm journaling, meditating, yogaing about it, whatever it is, and whatever it is that you're doing, you can't seem to quite break through or break free from the impact that that had on you, and you're ready to try something different, try something new, and you're ready to utilize the power of your own mind using hypnosis or rapid transformational therapy, I would love to talk with you, because I see this in so many ways impact every client that I work with in one way or another. They were put into that position, and oftentimes unknowingly. And so they're adults today, not knowing where this comes from, not knowing why the things they're doing to try and not feel or experience these things are still there. So that's why I'm absolutely passionate about hypnosis and rapid transformational therapy, because it allows you to go straight there and get it out, remove it and release it from the unconscious mind and level, which is where it resides. So if any of this resonates with you and you felt that you were a child and you were forced to grow up way too quickly, and you were put in the role of a parent way beyond or way before you were actually a parent yourself, and now you're ready to go back and transform from all that, then I would love to talk more and connect. So you can always click on the link in the description below this video and learn more about me, learn more about hypnosis and rapid transformational therapy, and see the results that other people have gotten. And if it's a journey that you feel called to go on, I'd love to connect. So thank you guys for tuning in and watching this video. Much love to all of you, and I'll see you again very soon.